Happy 2018, and we're going to start it off with a little Q&A. You've got some questions, but so do I. Hey everybody, it's me, Margaret, giving you a behind-the-scenes peek as I set up to read some of these questions that you threw out the other day. If I don't know the answer, I'm sure there's someone who does. So a little over a week ago, I threw the question out there. I opened the floor. I said, you got any questions? Throw them out there and let's get answers. And when I say let's, I'm talking about not only what I have to say about something, but what you have to say as well, because we have a wealth of knowledge out there in this Sheepishly sharing group. So let's go with the first question. This came from Facebook. Shakoba Sullivan, is that how you say that? She says she's new to knitting, in her words, and I prefer the slippery metal needles. I'm looking to buy an interchangeable set and was wondering what everyone's opinions are on the Chiagoo set. And I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. If I spend that much money, I don't want to be disappointed, and I can understand. This is my book of needles. It's an old notebook that I just stole from one of my kids. They abandoned it, so I took it over. And I keep my needles in here using these Martha Stewart pockets. It's an organizer pocket by her brand. The thing I like best about them is they have this little flap across the top, like that. I got this idea from Erin, my yarn guru. Give me yarn 418 is her username. But I keep them all in here, and Erin is the one who introduced me to the Chiagoo needles. Now the interchangeable sets that I have are not in here, and they are the Knit Picks sets and the Knitter's Pride sets. I have both, love both as a matter of fact. But this is a Chiagoo fixed circular, and Erin introduced me to that because the cord is so fantastic. It is flexible, very flexible. But it's also, it doesn't kink, it doesn't bend, and it's just fantastic. I love it. I like the way it feels, the way it slides across the yarn. Of course, the joins are fantastic right here, very, very well made. But I can't speak to the interchangeable set. I would venture to guess that they're excellent because the quality of this is second to none, but I don't know for sure. So if you have an interchangeable set, comment on this video. Now, Alexandra Halsey had a personal question just for me, and she says, how long have you been knitting and crocheting, and how/why did you start? I think I've mentioned this a long time ago, but I started with loom knitting. I was in a very dark place in my life, some really just bad things happening, and this was suggested to me as an activity. I blew it off, and then one day I'm sitting in church and a missionary is telling us about a need for crochet and knit hats for this place where they're going, and it sort of like sent me off to investigate. So I did, and I thought it was entirely, it looked like algebra. The patterns looked like algebra, but I looked at loom knitting, picked it up, loved it, and never looked back. And I can attest to the fact that a repetitive activity like knitting or crocheting is super good for the brain. Scientists tell us that, but I am living proof that it really is a therapeutic thing. So if you're down in the dumps, pick up your work and go like crazy. And when was that? 2011, I believe it was. So not very long in the scheme of things. I'm very jealous of these young people who have started so early. They're going to have some mad skills when they get to be my age. Alexandra also asked another question, and she said, what is your all-time favorite project? And this is it. It is the first thing that I ever completed. It's a loom knit hat with Dazzle Air yarn. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was discontinued. I found it at the Dollar Tree, and I've never seen any yarn at the Dollar Tree since then. But this was my little loom knit hat that I loved, and I really like this Dazzle Air yarn. I'm not sure why it was discontinued. It feels great. But I love it, and when I see this little hat, I never wear it. I don't, I keep it because it makes me happy. This was my introduction into the world of yarn. Karen Reinhardt asks, have you crocheted an easy hooded scarf? Why, yes, I have. It's a scarf by Zoe, who is 24 Karat Crochet here on YouTube. Great pattern. I was supposed to be a pattern tester. Was a little late on turning my stuff in, but it was a flawless pattern and very fun to do. I'm going to link that below, and I'm also going to link the video where I talked about my experience with that, and in case you're interested. But it's fantastic. Oh, this is Editing Margaret here. I was searching for the link for that video and I forgot entirely that I did another Scooty pattern, and this one was by Bob Wilson 123. It's one of the first projects I did early on, and as a matter of fact, it was the very first video I ever did. And if I thought my hair is overgrown now, it's even worse there. So I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I'm getting my hair cut Monday. She also says, and I knit one too, maybe. Nope, I haven't knitted one, although I do have a paid-for pattern. Let me go dig that out. This is a pattern called Through the Woods, and I bought it as a Craftsy kit. I'll put a link to the pattern. It's called a hooded neck warmer, and I'll put a link to the pattern below if I can find it, of course. It does have cabling in it, though, so that may not be something that you're looking for, Kathy, but that's what I'm eager to try. Marie Parker has a good question. She says, where is your favorite place to knit? And to tell you the truth, I don't have one. And I think the reason why is because I get bored so easily. I like to get up and move around, even in my own house. I have my favorite chair upstairs. I'm in the basement right now. This is my craft room right here. And I don't ever crochet in here or knit because there are no comfortable, relaxing chairs to do. This is where I sew. This is where I create and do anything else than sitting and knitting and crochet. I also like to go in this other room in my basement. It's on the other side of this wall, and that's where we have a nice big TV and the pool table and stuff like that, but it has our old comfy couch that I absolutely adore. And then I take my knitting and crochet with me places. So on vacation, of course, that's been fun. I've even knit on the beach. I don't know. My answer is I get too bored to call one place my favorite. Now, Georgianne Allen Braden says, what's the best beginner sock pattern? Now that sounds like a nice simple question, right? But there is nothing about knitting and crochet that is simple, because we are all individuals with different methods and different ways of learning. And so there's not a way for me just to say, this is the most perfect one. Start with this. You have to kind of investigate, but I will tell you something. Jennifer, Crafty Jen on Instagram, sent me this book. It is a fantastic book, and I've talked about it at length. Actually, I'll probably try to link below some of my early learning about socks so you can kind of work through my process with me if you want to. But I talked a lot about this book in there. This is a wonderful book with tremendous pictures and even patterns in the back. It's really helpful just to read about it. Now, here's the deal about beginning socks. Just simply understand the architecture, and then you decide what you think makes the most sense to you by reading and watching videos. And speaking as a teacher, I feel very strongly about that because we all learn differently. Now, the architecture of a sock is you've got a cuff, you've got a leg, you've got a heel, you've got a foot, and you've got a toe. And believe it or not, each one of these things can be done differently and you can put them all together. You can find a pattern that you like, but you can still use your favorite heel. And the favorite heel that I have is actually the only heel I've ever done, and that was given to me, it was gifted to me by Sarah Hepworth, who is a sock knitter extraordinaire. And Sarah, I think it's like $1. It's not an expensive paid-for pattern. Fish Lips Kiss Heel is what it's called. Search for it on Ravelry. And it is it makes sense, but you need to be comfortable knitting, I think, to be able to do that and to memorize that. But compared to some of these wrap and turns and different things like that, I'm really thinking the Fish Lips Kiss Heel has a lot of advantages. It fits very well, too. It fits me very well, and that's another thing that you'll have to learn about. The Fish Lips Kiss Heel also has a lot of sock fitting information in it. It's not just the heel pattern. So it's a huge bargain for that dollar price and a super gift that Sarah gave to me because I learned a lot reading through that entire thing. You can also decide if you want to knit top down to the toe or you want to knit toe up to the cuff. So there's lots of things that you consider, lots of things to consider, lots of factors that will depend on personal preference. So I'm no help with that question, am I? But I would recommend good resources, and YouTube is one of the best. And Georgianne also asks a wonderful question. She says, did you find your new charity in Atlanta? And yes, I think I have. And now that it's after the new year, things were crazy for both the charity and for me. And so we decided to put it off and talk more about it after the new year. But what the plan is, this is called Backpacks for Love or Backpacks of Love. It's something that our church does. We found a need in the schools where there are kids that were going home with no food for the night, no food for the weekend. And what happens is we provide them with food that they can take home very discreetly. It goes into their backpacks without anybody else knowing. So there's nobody who's saying, oh, look at so-and-so, she gets charity food or anything like that. We also put in there any kind of things that we might notice. If they're coming to school in dirty clothes, or holey clothes or something like that, that's taken care of as well. So I am talking with the person who at the schools is our liaison for this, and hopefully we can just add the hats, the scarves, the mittens, the small things that I do, or even I've got shawls in there and stuff, because obviously if there's poverty with the children, there's probably a grandmother or mother or somebody who would like a shawl that we could send home as well. But they'll know these things, and so we're going to work out the kinks later, but that's the plan. Robin Woodward says, what's your favorite easy adult crochet pattern? Of what? For a hat, I would have to say some of my hats, some of the patterns that I came up with, I find that I go back to again and again. I will link those. It's to my blog, and when I say blog, it's not something I keep up regularly. That blog is merely a written reference for everything we do here on YouTube. So those instructions are there with downloadable patterns and stuff like that. One that's not my own that I have done a tutorial for is the Better Late Than Never beanie by Kathy North, and that's a terrific one for using up your scraps and stuff. Hats are things that I do probably the most because, again, I bore easily and they're quick, easy, and useful and practical. So I do a lot of those. All right, Terry Basper. We're going to skip that maiden name. That's a tricky one. She said, would love to buy a sweater quantity of yarn, but I don't want to break the bank. Any suggestions on good quality, reasonably priced yarn? Okay, again, sounds like a simple question, but lots of different factors here. First of all, your bank may not be the same as my bank, so to speak, so that can be tricky, and also preferences of different type. But I will tell you about this one. This is a big box store yarn, Lion Brand Heartland. I actually ordered this very cheaply from Craftsy. It is this? I think this is 100% acrylic. Yes, it is. This is 100% acrylic, but it's a very soft acrylic. It's actually very drapey acrylic too. Of course, you can make it even more drapey by increasing your hook or needle size. I am in the process of using this to make this poncho. Again, I think it was a Lion Brand pattern. This is the one that has Smitty hair on it. I think I told y'all about it. I lost my Smitty cat, and it made me so sad that I didn't want to move the hair off of it. And I know that sounds weird if you're not a pet lover, but it was very emotional for me. So I need to pick it up and get going on this again because I bought this for myself. So it's like a sweater, you know, sort of quantity at least, but poncho. Very great, easy to work. I also made Maggie's Harry Potter sweater out of this, which is extremely soft, washes well, and I really like it a lot. Now, if you want to go up a step from that, try KnitPick's sales, because KnitPicks will have lots of wool blends that they have. They have something called Wool of the Andes, which is actually 100% wool, which you can get on very good prices when they have good sales. And what's that other one? This one is even more of my favorite. It's a Cascade Cherub, and it's 55% nylon and 45% acrylic, and it is so incredibly soft. Funnily enough, is funnily a word? It feels a lot like this Lion brand Heartland, which is 100% acrylic. I find that to be very weird. I don't know how acrylics could be different. You put this against, like, say, a Red Heart Super Saver, and you don't even think they're made of the same thing. So processing of acrylic is very, very different, apparently. But I love this Cascade Yarns Cherub DK, and I got this from, I think I got this from KnitPicks. It could also be from Webs. Yarn.com, another place to find wonderful sales. So keep your eye peeled, and you can get really quality yarn for great prices. All right, all hands on deck. We need help with the answer to this one. Elizabeth Slyson, I think we pronounced that. Do you happen to know why gauge can change when knitting a sweater midway through the body? Mine gets looser the more I knit. I believe it has to do with your relaxation. Again, this is one of those situations that I think is too complicated to just throw out a general one-size-fits-all answer. I also noticed that when I begin a project, my gauge is tighter and it loosens up the more I go. This may be what you're talking about. I think it's because you have less to work with, less to hold on to. You have to be very careful, and you're a little tense when you're starting the project off. So that could be it. I'm not sure. Or are you talking about maybe you've done, 20 rows of stockinette, you've got 40 more to go, and you just start getting looser and looser at that point? I don't know exactly what the reason is, or what the cause is, or what you're asking. Because it's so different. Like I said, everyone's personal knitting style and different. It's so different, it's hard to say. But my gut reaction is, as we relax, at least it happens for me, my gauge relaxes as well. And I think that's one of the challenges of knitting, is we have to learn to control that. And it's hard. After all, if it was easy, then everybody could do it, right? Now, I know it's after Christmas, so this may not be apropos for the beginning of January, but Mary Ann Flayton says, what is your fondest memory of Christmas as a little girl? And I had to give this one some thought, because I have lots of fond memories. But I want to give kudos to my mom, who could make everything seem grander than it actually was. And I always thought I had a huge Christmas tree. And I remember vividly the time I realized that it really wasn't. Our tree was only 4 feet tall, but she had it on this big table that was draped with this gorgeous cloth, and then she had the real nice tree skirt around it. And of course we had smaller presents all here, and the bigger presents were down below the table or whatever, and the thing looked to me like it was 20 feet tall. And I had no earthly idea. But she was like that with everything. She had been known to take apart presents and wrap them up in separate pieces so that we'd have more to open, and yeah, it was fun. Joanna Arsenault Barandio. I've never asked you how to pronounce your last 2 names. What are your crafting goals for 2018? I'll do a whole video on that. I've done one for the past several years, and I think it's important. And more importantly is I also go back and give you a report card on how I did for the previous year, and whether we're going to continue those goals, or whether sometimes it's good just to throw them out. So that video is coming soon. Karen Zimmer, she's been a subscriber for a really long time, and she says, have you learned to Tunisian crochet or done any projects? I don't remember you doing so, at least. Long time ago, Karen, I did teach myself a lot of crochet, Tunisian crochet stitches, and I read a lot about it. As a matter of fact, I never actually completed any totally Tunisian crochet projects, but it is my default when I have to do small pieces of crochet applique or something. For example, there's a Snappy Tots pattern that I use every year. It's the one that's called Sweater Friends, and I have the little, it's an elf with a hoodie, and that's a hat that looks like that, and then in that same pattern you can get a bear and a whack-a-mole and a penguin. Just, it's very, very cute. Well, the penguin requires a triangular applique beak that you just do. And whenever I do it in the crochet pattern, it doesn't come out nearly as neatly as if I use a Tunisian crochet. It just fills in so nicely and neatly. So I'm learning that there is a purpose for knitting, a purpose for crochet, and a purpose for Tunisian crochet, for knitting on the Addi Machine or machine knitting. They're not totally interchangeable. Each one has something valuable to add, or a look that it creates that would lend itself better to use a certain method over another. I don't know, that's just what I've learned through the years. So I think we all need to have a little taste of different types of crafts. Kind of helps our overall crafting. Katrina Knits says, did you teach yourself to knit and crochet, or did someone teach you? Well, back in like the 6th grade is the first time I picked up a crochet hook. All I could do was chain, single crochet, and double crochet, and of course I lost interest and my life went on. So it wasn't until later in life, to 2011, I think I mentioned earlier, is when I decided to pick it back up again. And who taught me was Claire, Bob Wilson 123. I seem to center around her videos the most. So she was a person on YouTube who taught me from Australia. So I say I learned from someone else. You will hear people often say, oh, I taught myself from YouTube. But remember, there's somebody on the other side of that camera who did a lot of work and preparation to teach you those skills. So I toast Claire. I just left the house in, what is it, 5 below? That's what the windshield feels like. I'm on my way to the school all day long for the events that I have to be there for. And I still have a whole lot of questions to put up and edit. And so it's not going to be anytime soon. So you know what? Let's stop here, put these questions up, and then I'll do the other ones in a second batch. Talk to you soon. Bye.